I think, to help people out and just understanding sort of why we did that, what images that we saw, and just get a bit more information about what Overnight.fi is all about. And it's funny because I think, Max, I'm pretty sure you reached out to our community lead, Epicurus, and he was the one that routed you to me. And if you guys don't know in the audience, I mean, obviously we're all on Discord, right? So we know that we're constantly getting, DMs from spammers and people promising you millions. And if you click on your link, they take all your money and all that kind of stuff. As being a team or being part of the team on a crypto project, you get the additional burden, I guess, of people contacting you saying, hey, I want to be a mod in your community. I want to be a marketing, collab manager kind of deal. Like, we get those all the time as well. For me personally, I'd rather hire someone from within the community, right? Not someone who's just looking for a paycheck, but that's just my personal opinion. Either way, Max was one of those like random DMs that I got. And he had this very long post explaining, very articulate, starting from start to finish, talking about USD Plus and kind of what it's all about. And I gotta say, Max, you're the only person that I've ever gotten a random DM from where I'm like, this is actually pretty interesting. And so I brought it to the community. We talked about it, and everyone else kind of thought the same generally. And and then the rest is history. So, congrats, Max. I mean, I know it's not easy to bust in on somebody's DMs and and actually have success, but I mean, you gotta. I think you have a really good product, and so that obviously is the big difference.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that. I actually love the product, and that's why I actually like telling people about it. It's actually a pleasant part of the job. I don't see sales or development. I actually explain why I think it makes so much sense, and I really enjoy, so far the reaction people are giving. So
I thought the same, and so I guess that's a decent segue. If you want to sort of tell everyone kind of what Overnight.fi is about, what USD Plus is about, and kind of just and I guess also what I don't know what to say, how to call it, but like, what is your position in Overnight.fi as well?
Oh, I'm the founder of Overnight.fi.
Oh, okay.
And my name is Maxim Ermilov. I'm originally Russian, now living in Armenia for unfortunate and obvious reasons. I'm very happy that I'm part of a global DeFi community, because I think it's really global, and it's a privilege to be part of it. I am a traditional finance person. I studied JP Morgan bond trading back in '98. Morgan Stanley, I went through the subprime mortgage crisis in between. For 17 years, I worked at the Boston Consulting Group, and I led financial institutions practice over there for the Eastern Europe. I worked in Paris, London, Singapore, and Moscow. I'm educated in Russia, Plekhanov, in Paris, ESSEC, Seattle in Singapore, and Stanford in the United States. So at some point in time, I wanted to change my life. That was about 5 years ago. I discovered blockchain. I discovered at that time like the world of crypto. We started building some businesses for some of my clients. And then I wanted to be an entrepreneur in this sphere. Actually, a year ago, I had this idea. It sounds funny, but I had this idea of a compliant stablecoin. And so what brought me into this idea is that, I was yield farming and DeFi summer and you name it. So two things. First, I realized I was spending a huge amount of time researching and kind of yield farming. Yeah. And I just thought it was not worth the time I was putting into it, just because it was so inconvenient. And because I'm very risk averse, I was actually looking for extremely low risk opportunities, and it was inconvenient, time consuming ways to find it. And I was thinking, can't you make like, a money market fund? Like, in traditional finance, when you have spare cash, you just buy a money market fund, like from something like Vanguard or Fidelity. You just don't think about it. It's as good as money, but it gives you some yield. And you just know it's cash, but also gives you some yield. It's like a savings account. And I couldn't find a product like that. And then I was thinking about it, and then I realized, the SEC in the United States, they have this regulation that, money market funds they must follow this regulation of NAV of 1. So literally every unit of a money market fund in the United States, and actually that's the role model for the rest of must follow the NAV of one policy. So if every unit must be $1 all the time. And so I just realized, I said like myself, wow, SEC invented stablecoins, but they call them money market funds. These are money market funds, they generate yield, but they're always $1. And so I said, wow, that's actually should be built on the blockchain in DeFi, because it just makes so much sense. It should be like the dollar which generates yield. And I was thinking about it, and then I realized it has a ton of use cases. If it's obviously dollar which is generating yield, that's obviously kind of fantastic for liquidity management. Like you have your stable coins, USDC, DAI, whatever. Like they sit in your wallet or somewhere, not generating any yield, but it could be generating yield. So liquidity management, like hence the name of the company, Overnight. So for as short a period of time as one night, you can put your spare stable coins into USD Plus and start getting yield. And it's very convenient, no barriers, just swap it for USDC and that's it. And you're already making yield. It's very simple. It's the lowest possible risk. It's maximum liquidity and it's some yield. It's not a lot of yield, but it's infinitely more than zero.
Yeah.
So that's the idea. And then
No, go ahead.
Yeah, and then I discovered that this simple idea had a lot of kind of additional value and a lot of additional utility. So it's funny, but you take NASDAQ, for example, why do they trade for dollars? I mean, when you have money market funds, like these units of the money market funds, which are regulated, which are as good as money but generating yield, why are they trading for dollars? Why are they not trading for the units of these money market funds? And I thought, in the DeFi, we can change that. We can actually start trading for, not just for USDC, we can start trading for USD Plus, which is, is generating yield. So you are trading, you are liquidity mining, like you're providing liquidity to all these DEXs or wherever, and you're also generating yield with your stablecoin. So there's like additional utility, which seems to be extremely interesting. Then the crypto winter came, and suddenly there was an explosion of interest in our stablecoin because it's the opposite of UST, extremely low risk. It's actually the lowest possible risk there is in DeFi. It's built to be compliant for the future. And actually a lot of people, a lot of developers, they have to maintain their own liquidity in their own token. So they start like yourselves, CLAM token, for example, or we had like 5 other projects contact us and establish pairs with USD Plus. They provide their own liquidity, and in the past, the wisdom was try to provide liquidity on a DEX like QuickSwap, paired, so your token paired with either ETH or Matic because it's growing, and by growing, it's going to kind of boost up the value of my own token as well. And so people would provide liquidity this way. Now Ethereum is volatile, Matic is volatile. You might think that there is like a bear market in a sense, and this is kind of going down. Might be true, might be not. But if it's going down, it's also down your token. And so a lot of people started thinking, why not switch liquidity, which I'm providing myself, to something which at least stable, like USDC. Or in case of USD Plus, why not switch to something which is certain to appreciate? Like not certain, but close to being certain to appreciate. Because first of all, it's my own liquidity. And if it's USDC, no yield. USD Plus, there is yield. And second, it's growing, so it's going to be pushing up the price of my own token as well. And so that seems to be like, I hate to say it, but this use case has become like throughout May, there is an explosion of interest. So there's people trying to switch their liquidity pairs to USD Plus. And it's kind of bad for the world, it's bad for the market, bad for the crypto community, but it seems like USD Plus is some sort of anti-cyclical product in a sense.
I can see that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you had mentioned several times about how low risk it is, and I believe you mentioned it in your in what you were saying as well. But I just want to sort of come back to that to re-emphasize. USD Plus is essentially you mint USD Plus with, I believe it's USDC only at the moment, right? That's the only collateral that's accepted.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So you mint it with USDC, and then just holding it or having it wherever you have it in an LP or whatever, you get daily rebases of USD plus. And so, can you just once again emphasize sort of where that yield is coming from? Because I think that, especially when you're talking about a stable coin, people want to know, all right, is this inflation? Is this, where is it coming from? So you want to just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so the mechanics of USD Plus has actually been copied essentially from the money market funds. So it's designed to be extremely low risk. So at the moment, indeed, you can mint one USD Plus in exchange for one USDC, or redeem one USDC for one USD Plus at any point in time. You click, you get. So instant liquidity is very important for. Where does your USDC go when you mint USD Plus? It goes into collateral. And at any point in time, USD Plus is 100% or more collateral. So this collateral consists of low-risk DeFi assets. They're all published on our site. It's all very transparent. But these are like DeFi. These are DeFi farming strategies, which include lending, things like Aave. In the past, we used things like Impermax a little bit. We don't like that protocol anymore. Well, we like them, but we provided some deposits on Mesh in the past, so which is also kind of lending. So that's one set of strategies. But every time we do due diligence, got to be understandable protocol. We look at the code. We more or less ignore the audit. It must be there, but we ignore it. We look at the code, get comfortable. We can lend in these situations, in some situations. And then there are stable to stable strategies. So at the moment, for example, USD Plus is deploying liquidity to Dodo USDC strategy. So Dodo is a well-known exchange protocol, and so it's quite reliable. We are providing liquidity to Uniswap v3, USDC USDT pair via Arrakis. Also farming not just fees, but also farming rewards over there. We had Mesh over the last 2 weeks, USDC USDT. Since Sunday, we switched all that to Dystopia, farming USDC USDT and USDC DAI. So basically, these are like no impermanent strategies, which are instantly redeemable for stablecoin. Yeah.
Do you take your the rewards that you get from like Arrakis and from Dystopia? Do you immediately convert them into stables?
Once a day. So
Okay.
there is a rebase once a day. So the technology of the rebase is exactly the same as Aves, except for a few small differences. The major one being that we rebase only once a day, around midnight San Francisco. So, and right before the rebase, the strategists will go kind of claim all the rewards, sell all the rewards for USDC. We will mark to market the position, so kind of calculate the value of all positions. So for us, USDT is not one USDC, and DAI is not one USDC. It's always like 0.19998, or like we always take like or calculate, and that's actually the liquidation price we take. So like how much it would take to sell it with the slippage, as opposed to just what is the mark to market. But anyway, so we calculate the value of the precisely, and then we rebalance the portfolio. So if, for example, Dystopia has grown in value because it has been sold profitable and is exceeding its allocation, other protocols are kind of are below their allocation targets. Then the portfolio will be rebalanced automatically by the smart contract to the target weights of various strategies. Okay. And it's always USDC. So if the value of the collateral was 100 and there were 100 USD plus in circulation, imagine it went up by $1, so it's 101, just for simplicity of calculation. We will sell all the rewards, recalculate, realize it's 101, then we mint one USD plus, and we pass it over to you via rebase. So that instead of being 101% collateral, USD plus becomes 100% collateral at any point in time. But so that's how the collateralization works in our case.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can certainly see the advantage to what you're talking about, which is a stable coin that rebases and increases in quantity every day. That isn't a risk, right? Because that's the basically the bedrock of all stable coins, is that they're supposed to be zero risk. Obviously, it's never zero, right? Because of recent events and UST and such. Like you said, it's infinitely more than zero. So USD Plus is a nice thing in that way. But I think the real magic comes when you pair, like what we did, you pair it with a token of your choice in an LP, because not only do you have the stability of a stable coin, but it's actually increasing in value on one side of that pair. And so, like for instance, for us, the USD Plus is constantly going up by whatever 5 to 10%, and then because of the LP's smart contract, to keep that balance, more CLAM is being drawn into the LP, being bought off the market for that LP. And so it's a very good mechanic, and that's completely regardless of what CLAM price is doing or whatever token. And so that's where the real power comes in. I believe in this sort of in this token. And so my question is, I always get the first question because I'm speaking. What are your plans for increasing the availability of USD Plus LPs? Because I know that you're on Dystopia. Obviously, we did the same thing, but what are your plans for expanding USD Plus's LP availability? Like for instance, is there ever going to be a time when I can hop on QuickSwap and deposit a USD Plus ETH pair or whatever, something like that?
You already can. So we want to do it. So basically, for us, any DEX which supports Rebase, which is more or less any DEX except Uniswap v3, any DEX is kind of a distribution channel. So it's like a shelf in a supermarket where we want to put our product. So we want to do as many DEXs as possible, as many pools as possible. So stablecoins typically, I don't know, maybe it comes from the curve wars or stuff like that. They look at the TVL and they try to drive as much TVL as possible. And for them, this is like the measure of success. Our strategy is going to be a little, and basically the way to drive the TVL and maintain the peg, typically for most, is provide incentives on stable pools and kind of establish stable to stable pools, for example, against USDC or whatever, and provide incentives, so have people come in and there's not much trading happening, but just people just store their money in the stable pools against your stable coin. Our strategy is slightly different. A lot of people are surprised. Our strategy is to try to have USD Plus used as a means of trading as much as possible. So we want people to have the deepest liquidity on Plus when they want to trade any token. And actually that is why our first two pairs were not against USDC, because we are kind of, we are already paired against. At point in time we can do an exchange of USD Plus and the other way around. So we're already kind of pegged to USDC. We honestly, if it was not for distribution and kind of convenience of usage, we would not even needing to kind of the stable to USD Plus pools, or like USDC to USD Plus pools, because it wouldn't be, there's nothing to exchange. It's always one. But that is why the first pairs we established was USD Plus ETH and USD Plus Matic. And that's where we want to drive most of the liquidity. Our approach is try to trade as much as possible. And that means that, try to trade tokens which are crypto tokens, not stable coins. Because when there is volatility, there is trading. And try to achieve maximum liquidity there on as many as possible. And so once that is going to generate fees for DEXs, and DEXs do love fees these days. And so generate as much fees as possible, and then that will provide deep liquidity, and that will kind of establish USD Plus. We will never be as big as USD, but we'll establish it as kind of a standard stable coin, which is commonly accepted, maybe as well as DAI or something like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, never say never. I mean, again, the product is sound. You're not taking any unnecessary risks. So, it really is. I actually think the token name is quite appropriate. It's USD Plus. It's just USD but better. And so I mean, it makes sense to me.
Thanks.
Again, as long as that was my first question. It's like, well, okay, are you adding a little bit of new money on top or any, but since you're not, and if the yield farming is not yielding as much, then you just don't get as much APY, and that's fine as long as it's being done safely and conservatively. And so, again, obviously, I'm a big fan. So, but we've taken a lot of time here between the two of us. Let's head over to the community questions. Let's see.
Thank you.
Okay, so Rob says, what was the course of thought that led to the creation of USD Plus? I think you pretty much already answered that in your initial introduction. Here's a good question. Who holds the keys to the contract, i.e. how secure, decentralized, risky is the USD Plus ecosystem? I guess as far as, actual control, not as far as tokenomics.
So we have forked kind of compound governance, Zeppelin library, which is kind of industry standard that has been audited. And so whenever we need to make a change, it's me and two of my co-founders who are voting, because it's not yet decentralized enough. So it's kind of properly secured with this voting of voting right. The plan is to eventually make USD Plus completely decentralized. Like the inspiration which I've got is Vanguard, like second largest asset manager in the world, and that is actually compliant as owned by its community off chain, so completely compliant, but they owned by their own community, their funds, so the LPs into their funds, they own Vanguard, and that is the beauty of it. People don't talk enough about this. It's decentralized and compliant. So at some point in time, it was actually planned for this summer. I'm not sure whether the crypto winter is the right time to plan it or do it now. But we are planning kind of to eventually be completely decentralized, issue OVN token and make it very central. Now, for that, we will need to build the insurance product, because if I kind of give the OVN token to everybody, or like we sell it to everybody, people buy, and we let them vote on what goes into USD Plus portfolio, like into the collateral, people will vote for the highest take enormous risk. And so that is why the idea is the so-called insurance product. So you will be able to take OVN token and maybe kind of, put in additional assets like ETH, Matic, maybe USDC. Take it for a period of time, months or maybe years, not yet decided. So then you have risk, you have skin in the game, you have taken risk, and you care about not losing what you staked. And then these people will be able to vote on USD Plus. And then there will be insurance that will be the insurance fund, in a sense, for insuring against negative of the USD Plus itself. And so so we first build this insurance product, then we do the IDO, kind of provide very decentral ownership of OVN, and then it will it's me and a few co-founders who are voting.
Okay. And I guess you alluded to it in that answer, but the next question is, are there plans for a governance token? Will USD Plus holders get a piece of it? So what are your plans for the OVN token?
Yeah, let me put it this way. So the idea was that we are venture fund, so we have Hack VC by this guy Alex Pak, who is one of the founders of Dragonfly Capital, FG Labs, another fantastic pre-seed investor, Ryan Selkis from Missouri, Brian Tubergen, actually the founder of CoinList, and CoinList is like the Goldman Sachs of ICOs.
Right.
And we were very happy that he wanted to invest into it. And so the idea was to do the second venture round around this time, and then maybe within 1 or 2 months. Unfortunately, we have to change those plans because we are well funded with kind of a lot of money from the previous round left. We don't need to rush the VC round, and we don't need to rush if we kind of issue the OVN token in this environment, it will be a wasted opportunity to build something very unique. I mean, it will be like a plane which has never managed to take off. It will just fall right in the airport.
You're saying because of the exterior market conditions?
Yes. That's why we have to postpone the ICO, maybe to fall, maybe to later. We were talking to Arrakis guys. They were going to issue Spice token around this time, They're
Mhm.
postponing until 23. So we'll see. So yes, there is a plan for OVN. OVN will have utility to be used for the insurance of USD Plus against negative rebase. But the timing of that is still TBD.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to release something prematurely into a crappy market and have it fall flat in its face. It's probably better to wait until people are a little more generous with their with their funds, right? Or a little less scared to spend them, I should say.
Yeah, and I think it's important that it gets some critical with stablecoin. It's important to have critical, and in this environment, it's not to reach it. And if you don't reach critical mass, you don't have network effects. You cannot become kind of the industry standard, at least on one blockchain like Polygon or multiple blockchains, and then it will not take off. It's actually very important to reach this critical mass, and that's why, and we only have one chance to reach it, because when you issue the token, that's your marketing budget. You drive adoption with that token a lot, and that's your insurance budget. So if we don't, it's not because we want to get rich by selling expensive. It's because this is really important for this thing to take off, to establish it right at the right level.
Here's an interesting question: Where did UST Plus? Where did you guys hear about us?
On Dystopia.
Okay, so you saw us listed there.
I saw you listed there, and I saw you get.
What was that? Sorry, you broke up.
I saw you getting the NFT.
Oh, the VNFT, yeah.
Yeah, before the launch of. But I thought, it makes so much sense to launch it, like to have the joint pair that, by 3 companies I noticed, which I didn't know, and I thought it really makes a lot of sense, and that's why I contacted you.
Yeah, I mean, for us, I really like the idea because, at the moment, OtterClam is a low volume pair, the CLAM LP, CLAM My LP, so it's nice to have some passive growth in there built in, sort of, just to support that and support the LP. So it's fun for me. Are you by chance giving away a Legendary Otto NFT? I'm gonna take this one, Max. No, he's not, Rob. But your time will come. Don't worry. Your time will come. Okay, so next group of questions. How big do you see the adoption of USD Plus? Good question. Where's your end game? I've been wondering this too, because you've been, the way that you've been describing the product, it sounds a lot like you're ultimately trying to get the ear of, maybe some more traditional finance groups. Is that true?
No, that's not true. No. I just think, decentralized and compliant. It's not either or. It's and.
Okay.
You see what I mean? It's actually very important. So that's why we are building something that makes sense. We are not regulated, and there is no regulation for stablecoins yet. But we are making something which is in the spirit of kind of being honest and transparent and creating true value for the user of the USD Plus. So I want to be compliant just because, and I want to be like, I'm probably already, it's too late for me to change my ways, but I'm just thinking, transparent financial service, kind of customer-centric, financial products is kind of the future. It's good for the people. So it's actually, that's the spirit I'm trying to build this in. And as I said, Vanguard is my role. It is indeed a traditional financial institution, but it's also extremely untraditional. As I said, the unique model is that it's number 2 in the world. It's like, I don't know, it's like trillion, like maybe tens of trillions under management, 11 trillion under management, something like this. And these guys, they don't have no central ownership. They are owned by the LPs. That's actually, extremely interesting way. And this eliminates the conflict of interest between investors and the LPs. So it's not one or the other, it's aligned. And that's what I'm trying to build.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So for us, it's, as I said, it's important to reach critical mass. The way there is not by growing TVL. The way there is to have maximum liquidity, maximum trading, which will drive the TVL. I'm actually very proud. At the moment, you have like top 10 pairs, in top 10 tokens, which Dystopia, USD Plus is number 5. So over the last 24 hours, it hit 106,000 USD Plus, or like $106,000. And number 6 is Frax, which have traded 100,000. And if you look at it, USD Plus only has liquidity on Dystopia 405,000, and Frax has 2.6 million, so like 6 times more. But USD Plus is really trading. Why? Because it's trading against Matic, it's trading against Ethereum, and so that volatility in these crypto things is driving trading volume. It's as good as USDC, and you just as Matic is volatile. So for me, really, what matters is comparable to somewhere between DAI and USDT in terms of the trading volume, and have a lot of trading against leading pairs, and so get accepted at least as DAI is as accepted. So that's what we're trying to achieve. Yeah.
With fully transparent collateral data.
Yes, exactly, and showing you full transparency, letting you know where we're farming, kind of full disclosure.
Yeah, it seems like Dystopia is a great. It seems like it's like a showcase of USD Plus, because when I perused the different pairs, there's quite a few USD Pluses on there. Considering that it's a new stable coin, right? I mean, there's you've got a nice presence there, and so that's good to see.
Thanks. Yeah.
Any difference from other stable coins that make it unique? Advantages? Well, I mean, besides the yield bearing.
Yeah, I think
that's the big one.
Well, it's generating yield, but I think the real thing is in the transparency of the collateral and the focus on the low. Maybe DAI is very similar to us in this sense, because we are kind of a decentralized stablecoin like DAI, and DAI and us are extremely kind of risk averse. So every day there should be either zero profit or some profit or zero. There should never be a negative rebase. That's more important. I should at any point be able to return to you all 100% of USD Plus in circulation in USDC. So that's what matters to me. And then whatever yield there is like the derivative of that. So this focus on the risk aversion and liquidity and transparency is probably what.
And what are your future plans for utilizing USD Plus? Where do you see it? Do you see it strictly as like an LP vehicle or something else?
So trading, like a lot of trading. I also think, beyond liquid pairs, I would really love to see a situation where, at least on one blockchain, like one, we reach a situation where by default, tokens or like projects which are smaller than Matic, think by default they want to pair against USD Plus. Like whenever they think about issuing a token, they want to establish a pair against USD Plus. We actually, for the last 2 weeks, we have 6 projects like this. I never thought it would happen. We have 6 projects. Most of them reached out to us themselves, including yourselves, but Sphere and a bunch of games and like small ones. They want to establish pairs with Tattoo. Want to establish pairs, or we have established USD. That's what we want to achieve. That we become a default. And then, as I said, I'm a traditional finance person. So in my mind, it doesn't mean that like we are very risk averse. So we are kind of main risk. But for people who want to take the risk, who have high risk appetite, what I believe makes sense is not to get involved with lack of transparency, and you never know what's going on. Or like you play a game, it's like an algorithmic, it will end up badly sooner or later, but you hope to be the first out. I think if you really want to have high risk appetite, it's by far better to leverage something like USD Plus. I would like to partner with some lending protocol, in particular interest-free lending protocols, which would accept USD Plus as collateral. And it's actually a very smart play, because if typically when you provide your collateral, you are afraid of liquidation, afraid that your crypto will fall and you kind of the liquidation price, and you get liquidated and you lose. But with USD Plus, this risk is stable, so when you don't need to worry about volatility, you can really leverage it. Like you can leverage 3-5 times if you're, just to be safe. If you want to be really gamble, you can leverage it up to like 6-7 sometimes even up to 9 times you can leverage USD plus. And then suddenly, our pretty modest 8-9% suddenly becomes, 8% multiplied by 9, minus some fees, but like you are easily above 50. So I believe that, with the leverage solution, we would be able to offer the market a very diverse combination and returns. So people who want have short-term liquidity and just they use USD plus unleveraged. People who want to gamble or want risk and try to become to get really huge return, they can leverage it really, really seriously. And so through this plethora, we would be able kind of solutions for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, again, when you have a stable coin that is focused on just not losing, right? I mean, when your whole focus is staying low risk and always providing a net positive for your holders, even if it's a smaller net positive than what could have been had you gotten into something riskier. It opens up a lot of options because you can look at USD plus the same way as you would utilize it in the same ways as USDC. Except, you also have yield on top of that. So, it's just you have all these additional options because you've already got a growing stable coin. This concept, now that it's out, it's so simple. It's like, why didn't anyone do this earlier?
I get that a lot.
Yeah, because it's like, okay, farming as a service. Hey, I get it. The concept is simple. You give, in a way, the OtterClam treasury is kind of farming as a service, but all you're doing there is investing on somebody else's behalf, which obviously is a concept that's been around forever. And of course, that's what USD Plus is as well. But the fact that it's a stable coin also allows you to to leverage that in LPs to do the yield on yield. And I had mentioned it to you when we first talked that, it would be so cool to have a USD plus ST-Matic pair, from Lido, because they basically take your Matic, stake it for you, and then they give you the ST-Matic, which is a constantly growing token as well. And of course, they take a cut, and that's their whole business model. So you put those two together, and regardless of market conditions, you've got this LP that's always growing. It's just very cool that it allows you to sort of widen your perspective, I guess, or I don't know, just gives you more options. It's very cool.
Yeah, and thanks for this. By the way, it never occurred to pay against staked Matic. And so once you rolled, I allowed myself to take the screenshot. And I right away went to the shark to talk about this. I hope something will work out, but I let you know, because I think this is really cool.
Let me know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just makes too much sense. You got two, you got a pair of LP tokens, and they're both growing on their own, regardless of what's happening. It's just, I don't know, very beautiful thing, the magic of crypto.
Indeed, it just suddenly something so simple opens so many opportunities.
Yeah,
it becomes mind blowing. Yeah.
All right, so let's keep moving here because we're actually getting short on time. Pingu1, our resident Cheetao ambassador, says, if OtterClam is moving liquidity from my CLAM to USD plus CLAM, will the DYST vote from OtterClam also switch to the first pair to the new one? So I can answer this one. So yeah, we're planning on moving our vote after this first gauge period from my CLAM to USD plus CLAM. So that's the goal, and we're keeping the rest of our my CLAM in QuickSwap. We're just the USD plus CLAM is only 50K. So we're doing it as sort of a test run. And, but after that, and also we just passed a vote to begin gauge voting within our community. So although the protocol is currently voting for USD plus CLAM, starting, I guess it's tomorrow, I'm going to have to go ahead and put together a snapshot, the same as Cheetah, to offer, all the various LP pairs on Dystopia, and allow the community to vote with their pearls on on which pairs they want to vote for. So it's not going to matter very much in the end. I plan to vote for USD plus CLAM anyway, but that doesn't mean that everyone's going to do that. So we've actually opened a brand new utility for CLAM and for Pearl, because now we're going to give the community a chance to let their voice be heard and vote for Dystopia pairs. So Let's see. If liquidity goes down, the votes for the gauge being around 1-2%, any liquidity provider will get a lot of rewards from that pool. Asking for a friend. Yeah. So that's your answer. We're starting the next gauge. Well, I guess I guess we're not voting for USD plus CLAM because we're starting the gauge vote, right? So the community can vote for whatever it wants to. Again, I mean, I think it's in the community's best interest at the moment to vote for USD plus CLAM. But I mean, that could change. The whole point of opening up gauge voting is to attract people to the OtterClam ecosystem, because if you can get a bunch of pearls, you now control that 1.2% of all voting rights on Dystopia, right? And so that's attractive to a lot of people. This is the basis of the curve wars, of the chi wars, all that stuff. And so, we're now opening that up. I would expect that this coming week probably will be a large portion of USD plus CLAM votes. But after that, it depends on who joins. I mean, the idea is to get other people, Sphere, Dystopia, whoever, to start buying into Pearl to be able to control that vote. I mean, that's kind of the idea, the concept, and obviously that's going to have a very large price impact on CLAM itself. And so that's the whole sort of end game, and that's why we passed CIP 26 to start gauge voting. Is OtterClam planning to use Penrose and try to direct their votes to USD plus pools or keep their DYST tokens? Good question. We're definitely going to evaluate Penrose when it comes out. At the moment, we are taking all of our DYST. I believe we passed a vote to lock 50% of the DYST, sell 25% into Matic. I think we are then going to take the other 25% of DYST, pair it with that Matic into the Matic DYST pool on Dystopia to earn more DYST. So I think that was how it went. I'd have to look at the CIP again. I voted to lock 100%, but I lost that vote. So, but that's the current plan. But that's only because we don't have concrete information on Penrose yet. And for those who don't know, Penrose is essentially, if you're familiar with convex and curve in the curve wars, it's essentially, Penrose is essentially the convex to Dystopia being curve. And essentially, you take your DYST, you can lock it in Penrose instead of locking it in DYST. Penrose gets the governance. You can vote in Penrose the same way that we're doing in OtterClam now with the gauge voting. You can do the same thing in Penrose, and they offer you additional incentives to do so, right? So it's usually more lucrative to lock with Penrose than it would be to just straight lock into DYST. But again, we don't know because it's not live yet. So we have to kind of see what they offer, and then we can have another vote at that time. So OtterClam has built a solid treasury. Is there any plan for Overnight to build something similar, or the plan is solely to farm with USDC provided by the users? Good question. What do you think, Max?
Yeah, at this point in time, I think it was kind of some sort of conflict of interest if we were farming outside of USD plus. So we of course have some money which come as an investment into USD plus, but we are not farming anything outside of USD plus. I think it would just be wrong. It's like not, how to call it, you gotta do what you preach. So all our money is in the USD plus.
Okay.
Or in cash, yeah.
Fair strategy, makes sense. And I also wanted to say, the reason that I'm so attracted to this USD plus concept and utilizing for our CLAM LP is that, if you look at the dashboard, our treasury is about $2 million. So 550,000, over 25% of that $2 million is our CLAM My LP. And so that LP, 25% of our treasury, is getting nothing but trading fees, which at the moment are quite low because it's a low volume protocol or project. So to me, it makes sense to get our whole LP into something like USD plus, where we're earning, at least on half the LP, we're earning 5 to 10 to 12% APY, and it allows us to mobilize a large chunk of our treasury, which, by the way, has to exist, right? We need liquidity to be able to have everyone be able to buy and sell CLAM as they please. But just because it has to exist doesn't mean it has to just be a boring LP. I mean, if we can find a way to keep risk to an absolute bare minimum and still grow the LP. This is also, by the way, I mean, this is at least my motivation for moving to Dystopia as well, because at least now, even with my CLAM pool, now we're receiving DYST rewards, and those rewards allow us to continue to gain governance power in Dystopia, which allows us to offer gauge voting as an additional utility for CLAM and for Pearl. I mean, it's a whole like positive feedback thing going on. And so, however we can mobilize our treasury to be as lean and as productive as possible, I'm all for it. Obviously, taking into account all possible risks and such like that.
Yeah. I also maybe draw your attention to an interesting fact. You can see deploying your treasury in USD Plus as a way to farm Dystopia twice. So let me explain what I mean. Since Sunday night, farming a USDC on Dystopia, as well as USDC DAI full on Dystopia. Actually, we moved our position from Mesh, which is on decline, to Dystopia, which is on the rise. And essentially what is also work with Penrose and the Sphere ecosystem, where on one hand, there is a promotion of USD Plus, so we get some votes, and so starting sales, which is starting for people who are invested into our pairs on Dystopia, but also all the cash which goes, like a proportion of the cash which goes into USD Plus actually will be farmed on the stable-to-stable pools on Dystopia. And because it just launched, and because it's so lucrative, the yield today on USD Plus was an abnormal 18% APY with no risk, with no additional risk to what we had before. So you can think about it like when you vote trust in the CLAM USD Plus. First of all, you get and USD Plus is like number 5 in 3. Second, you are able to farm, you are able to get a yield from the pools on which you vote for. Because starting Thursday, I think there is differentiated for people who don't have any VD and maximum for people who vote, like VDs. And then you will be able to farm.
Max, you're getting, at least on my end, you're getting real choppy. It's hard to hear you.
But I think I just explained that because USD Plus is you can farm it on Dystopia, and then USD Plus itself will be deploying part of it collateral, stable-to-stable pools on Dystopia. So you'll be getting kind of 2 loops of farming Dystopia if you go for those pools.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And that's what's interested me is the sort of layered farming, that USD Plus provides. I think we've got time for one more question. Question to our guest: have you thought about insuring the collateral funds? Well, I think you already talked about that. Yes, the insurance is in the works, right? And
correct.
So you already explained the mechanism for that. So let's go to the last question here. Yesterday, the USD Plus team started to take a look at wrapping their rebase token. Pearl is the wrap version of CLAM and fully mastered by our great OtterKing. Any possibility to get some pair programming between the two teams to get this released quickly?
I hear you. We're gonna look at the wrap question from somebody today in our Discord implied that we work together with you. With your team on building the wrapper around you. It's actually for some tax reasons in specific. That actually can be very, very, useful mechanism for. So I am very happy to work with your team on this. Obviously prioritize this, given that you are establishing the pair and given that, it makes so much sense.
And then it looks like this is a question for me. Is there a plan to move some of the USD My liquidity in the treasury to USDC, USD Plus 2, or My USD Plus? So we currently have migrated the USD My from Cheetah to Dystopia without any conversions. Ideally, yes, I would like to migrate it to USD Plus anything. But we would also have to look at sort of what pairs are being voted on, because it would be a combination. It wouldn't make sense to, to gain the APY of USD Plus and lose, let's say, a greater APY of DYST tokens or something like that. I would rather wait until Dystopia settles and the APYs become sort of more expected, because right now it just launched. The APYs are insane because there's not as much liquidity and such. And so as liquidity flows in, and the APY settle down to something more, predictable. I'd like to see kind of what each pair is getting in terms of votes, and then we can go from there. We can run the numbers, see if it makes sense. I mean, obviously, any pair that has USD plus in it has a slight advantage to begin with, but as long as that advantage outweighs, maybe some other pair like USD MAI that might be getting a large share of DYST tokens through gauge voting. So yeah, I mean, it's something we're going to consider. We'll just have to look at it and probably give it a week or 2 or 3 or 4, I don't know, just to see kind of how everything falls, and then we can reevaluate and convert if need be. Because our CIP left it open ended to where we wouldn't have to vote the USD. As long as it's a stable pair, we wouldn't have to have another vote. So it's going to be whatever makes the most sense for the protocol. But at the moment, we're going to leave it where it is, and then kind of see where things go from there. All right. Well, we're out of time. So Max, I really appreciate you coming on and explaining to us what Overnight.fi is all about, and USD Plus as a token and a product. I'm really excited to see where this goes. I mean, to me, it's just a net benefit, and that's usually pretty hard to find in crypto. Usually it's high risk, high reward. This is I just think it's a really, really well thought out project, and I look forward to seeing where it goes. So again, thank you for coming on. And if there's any other questions that we weren't able to get to, maybe we can just answer in text over here. But
I appreciate your hosting and inviting. First time a project of caliber has considered a joint pair and moved. It's an honor and pleasure to be able to come and talk about USD Plus. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, not at all. It's been our pleasure as well. So, okay, guys, take care. We'll see you downstream.
Thank you.